Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and anyone else in between. No. Welcome to the greatest show on earth. Or at least the county, what's happening in the shed right now, I guess. It is time we do something on the old 48 again. We don't have very much left to do. Well, okay, we sort of do, but not really. Anyway, I think I want to turn our attention to the electrical system on this thing. I'm going to unbox this, and we'll take a look at what we got. Come on. Okay, now, the owner of the 48 requested that we convert from 6 to 12 volt, that's fine with me. I've done it before, and I'll probably do it again. You know me. I'm personally perfectly happy retaining 6 volts, but not everyone is there. I understand that, and I'm willing to do what they want me to do here. So, both of these kits that I have to show you here, I believe I bought through Chevs of the 40's, but both of them can be purchased from their own individual manufacturer website. First of all, we have a bare bones kit, Ron Francis wiring, kind of a nifty little fuse block there, 12 volt headlight switch, and then all the other, obviously the whole car wiring that we need. And then this is Vintage Auto Garage. This is specifically the charging system, and now we got 12 volt coil along with it. We've got 12 volt horn relay along with it. All the brackets that we need specifically for our 235. Even has a coil bracket, wires for the one wire alternator, instructions, and the black alternator. So, like I say, you can go to Vintage Auto Garage. It's almost mind-boggling how many options they have for you to sift through of what exactly you want to do. And I'm sure Ron Francis is the same, which is why I just went through Chevs of the 40's. Type in 1948 Chevrolet Passenger, 6 to 12 volt, you're going to get what you need. Just makes it a little easier. Now, when we were gussying up the engine compartment just a little bit and so forth, I already pulled out the majority of our wires in there, and depending on how long this video process goes, I won't be able to finalize anything in the engine compartment in regards to the wiring until we get our engine back in there, which I don't even have the short block back from the machinist yet. So basically we're just going to start tearing out wiring in the dash and on back, and we will do what we can do. That's all we can do. What kind of screw is that? They simply do not make parts like they used to. Beautiful old park lights. So whether or not you remember, early on in this video series, we had 2 quite long studs sticking through the firewall, and I trimmed them down before we touched up the paint under here. And I never showed you what those were actually for. Kind of interesting. We have some kind of magical radio device called a Golden Voice, Motorola Golden Voice. And I don't know if that's just a couple of speakers, fancy receiver. I don't know what's going on. We got we don't have an original radio. So anyway, all aftermarket radio stuff. Unfortunately, that is all. Well, I don't know if I can get you set up here. There we go. I just don't have a good place otherwise to mount our fuse block here. I could probably almost get away with putting it on the kick panel up in here. The parking brake assembly and everything gets a little bit close when disengaged, but it would probably work. But then we have that whole mess here. You know, if we go back, if the guy wants to put kick panels in here, then he has to deal with unbolting it and moving it aside. And then once you got nice kick panels in here, do you really want this and all of those wires hanging down below visible? You know, I kind of doubt it. So right where this left-hand box is just the ideal spot. So unfortunately, I guess I'm going to remove that whole contraption. We can take a closer look at it. So as I'm taking this out, I'm finally understanding what's actually going on here. There's actually not your typical radio unit behind the display here, whatever I can't even think of what you'd call it at the moment. But I just thought these were armored wires. These are actually cables, much like speedometer cables, you know. And so your station search knob and your volume knob are actually turning cables, and it's doing the job in here. That's normally in the backside of the radio. That is pretty interesting, which unfortunately means I pretty much have to take the unit head out too from the dash. But I bet you Frankie and Bing and Nat sounded pretty good coming through this thing, huh? Here's a better look at the apparatus. Pretty cool, huh? You know, normally this would be that much bigger behind the dash. And I'm taking this is probably a speaker, but I'm not too sure about that. Anyway, very interesting. Come on in, Doris. Take us on a sentimental journey. Hey, it sure is nice to have a door that stays open by itself, you know it? Now, I need to bring some appropriate screws to put this dude up on the firewall, so when I go to grab some dinner, I'll be sure to bring some of those back if I remember. So to finish out the morning, I'm going to continue stripping down what I want to here. Once again, we are going to do gauges, and I really don't think I'm going to do the speedometer. I'm going to check the clock and see if that's in as good a shape. But clean up the glass, and you're good to go on that. I'd rather have the original than a decal on there. So anyway, I'm going to pull the gauges out. I'm going to pull the headlight switch out. I'm going to pull our old heat switches out and ignition switch. Well, I'll be. I can see everything from here. Why did I never do this before? So a guy has everything removed of the electronic persuasion from the instrument panel, the dashboard, with the exception of our two heater switches. Now this has, much like our previous 48 Chevy project, this has the under the dash unit and under the bride unit. You know, you got to keep them brides warm, so it has that auxiliary heater underneath the right side seat there. So I just went ahead and left those in place. Certainly we will test them, make sure they are operational, and despite the fact that we are going to 12 volts, I will get a voltage what's the word? Not reducer, a voltage dropper, a voltage resistor. So, anyway, you know, it takes it from 12 and cuts her down to 6. And I will run the heaters through that if they turn out to be operational. Okay, so the only wires I have left are what I cut here, and these go up the A-pillar, over the doors, branches off to the dome light, continues on back into the trunk. And sorry, I don't have a light along in here, but one splits off and goes to our fuel sender for the gauge, and then we have all our tail light, tag light wires. So that's all there is to remove. I suppose a guy could run all of that along the frame and come up somewhere in the trunk if he really wanted to. However, you would still have to address the dome light issue. And, you know, it's debatable. Do I really need to get in there and replace all these wires? Well, judging by the condition of everything we've seen so far, yeah, you do. See, I can just break that old cloth right off of there. So, unfortunately, that means getting up in here in between our, you know, our windlace. I got to pop a bunch of this off and the headliner, and so I can access the clips that hold the wiring in and do a good job of pulling it out and rerunning it, and then of course getting over to our dome light. So I'm going to be working on that, and I will show you that in a minute. Forgot to disconnect my door switch wire. I'll do that and then I can pull it. Okay, I knew I was missing something and went back to the shelf and figured out what it was. Turn signal. Turn signal apparatus. Let me move our golden voice, or what was it? Golden tone? Golden voice, yeah. Our last kit here. Again, Chevs of the 40s. This is from Y&Z's Yesterday's Parts, and at least this portion of it. I have used them a lot. A lot of guys, when they watch my videos on rebuilding the wiring harness from the previous 48 from scratch, I have gotten a lot of emails. Where do you get those parts? Where do you get that wire? And so forth. And that is from Y&Z's Yesterday's Parts. I found those guys years and years ago. And yeah, that's what I do. Now your typical generic turn signal switch that never really looks that great in a car, you know, but it is what it is. Three-prong flasher, don't need that. Sockets for park lights. We do need that. There's your flasher. Turn signal wire to cover it up on the steering column, kind of dress it up a little bit. And then a couple of bulbs. And then little things to hold your sockets into the back of that. So, pretty nice kit. Instructions for the Ron Francis wiring. Very good instructions. Everything is very well documented. You've got your main set of instructions, and then every bag with its individual area of circuitry has its own set of instructions. They are very explicit in here to start with, well, okay, let me back up. They have alphabetized every bag. So you start with letter A, you do that system. Well, A is the alternator, the main battery wire for the alternator. B is your starter and your distributor. Basically, they want to take the main power sources and the main power feeds, go to your fuse block, and then you start branching off from there, which is a very good way to do it. Unfortunately, in our case, if we want to make progress, we have no starter, we have no alternator, we have no distributor. You know, all of that is going to have to come last, not first. So the best that we can do is start at our fuse block and go from there. This is the main power in to the fuse block, and that will go to the starter, so we can run that out and pretend it's going in the right direction. Otherwise, we're just going to have to move on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this, and then I want to get all the wiring back to the rear, get the lights taken care of, get the fuel sender taken care of, get dome light taken care of, and then we'll work our way back forward. That way I can button the headliner back up, and that's not in our way the whole rest of this project. So I'm going to get a drill, and we will mount this on the firewall and proceed.
Hey, wait a minute. Look at this.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You know, I don't feel safe riding around on a tire like that.
I don't blame you. That could get you in a lot of trouble.
Maybe I'd better change it.
I would if I were you.
I'm going to use these screws, commonly called a truss head screw. They kind of resemble a trim screw. Sorry, they kind of resemble a trim screw, and they are self-drilling. So we'll slap these in here, and then we will trim them off on the firewall side when we're done. What are you hitting? Don't like you. And you're in the way. You're always in the way. I've never seen you not in the way. Well, that's two. Try this one again. Will there be a problem? You gonna let me do this? Huh? No, you're not. I mean, two is better than not two. Well, let's go through some of our options and what we're going to do with our turn signals, tail lights, park lamps, so forth. Now, this kit that I got from Chevs of the 40s that has the Y and Z's harness in it and so forth, the turn signal kit, that obviously has a little laser cut bracket to help hold that socket in place. You just get a nice 2-wire bulb socket, spring loaded, and they sent along in that kit a halogen 2-element bulb. Should be nice and bright. On the tail light, however, you already have a 2-wire hookup because of your tail lights and your brake lights. So if your wiring is in good shape, really all you're going to have to do is tie in with your turn signal to your brake light circuits, and there you go, you have turn signals. And if you want a more modern bulb, then that goes right in there, right? Okay, now our wiring is shot. It was completely frayed when I pulled this rubber boot back. It was completely frayed all around the edges here, so we would have shorted out immediately. What that has, we got our 2 little contacts. Pop this new one out, much like this. Our 2 little contacts, it had springs, which are all in rusty pieces, an insulator, and then it went off to the wires. So just exactly like this, only this has an end cap, not the plastic all the way around. Right? So our options, if you search for, in this case, if you search for 48 Chevy passenger, tail lamp, harness, pigtail, whatever, you can find just this for $3 each online. Probably $20 shipping, you know. So a guy could take a Dremel tool or whatever and make an oval out of this, just like that, and use this modern style pigtail and go in there, and there you go. Or probably what I'm gonna do, my contacts are in good shape and they've got good wire coming off of them. My insulator's in good shape. All I have to do is take apart a ballpoint pen or something, you know, get a couple of springs, put them in there, solder it back together, and I can hook modern wire to it. No modification of our original socket will be required. I can pull this boot off of here, reuse that, and everything will be hunky-dory. Well, this changes everything. Went on a parts run and was looking at their electronic, their pigtail section. I had forgotten about these things. This is a handy pack. Let me get you a number here. HP 3990. And it is just your double contact pigtail, which is a replacement for what we took out of there. You've got your little plastic fiber insulators, your springs, your contact posts. So all of that goes right down in your original sockets. The wires stick out the end and it works great. So that's what we're going to do. Well, I'm sneaking my new wires back through. I've got my branch off to the dome light going to it. Now all that's left is to get these down the D pillar, I guess you'd call it in this case. There's a lot of pillars on this car. Oh wow, this thing is blue under here. Quite a patriotic theme going on, don't we? Uh-oh. We got John Deere green. Some farm boy's been at this thing, as if we couldn't tell. So I've been using a brass welding rod in lieu of a fish tape, you know. And about got my wires pulled through, being a little stubborn. See if I can get a little more slack on them here. Somehow, in my wild abandon of pulling wires, I forgot to get this whole bunch over one of the roof bows. So I just got to do it all over again, you know. Which, if pulling wires is what you delight in, then... Which obviously I do. So it's a good thing. I have temporarily installed our headlight switch in the dash and put the plug in it, the main harness plug. And there are two wires that are connected to that harness connector that are going to the back. And that's our tail light wires going to each rear tail light. And obviously we want to pull this all the way through, all our slack, all the slop. Otherwise, if we don't, no big deal. We could always cut and splice here, but why cut and splice if you don't have to? So I'm going to pull these two wires all the way through, leaving myself a little slop under the dash for when we have to mess with stuff. Otherwise, all of this is all headlight wires and power feed to the switch. That'll all be going the other direction. We'll do the same thing there. And then we have our turn signal wires down here and our fuel sender wire. And we can just trim those and make connections as we need to up here. Now, how do you judge how much extra wire is enough or too much? For myself, my personal preference, since I work on these things on a daily basis and there's every possibility that I may have to work on this car again someday, maybe not this one in particular. This one comes from a little farther away from home than usual, but what I judge by generally is when I work on it next time, how easy is that going to be? And so I certainly, like this headlight switch for example, I want enough slack that if I pull it out of the dash, I can work on it down here. I don't have my head and shoulders, knees and toes jammed up behind the dashboard the entire time trying to figure something out. You can simply pull the knob off, pull the nut off, and drop it down, and that's enough. And you can always tie up and tuck up wires up under the dash, tie them off with a zip tie if you need to, and that just makes it that much nicer for a guy. So this is going to be installed right there, and that should be just fine. Now on my taillight buckets, headlight buckets, park light buckets, or whatever you want to call them, I scraped all the barnacles off. Didn't make them perfect. I media blasted them all. They've still got some crust and rust. Well, no rust, but definitely crust. But anyway, I cleaned them up as best as they could be cleaned up, primed, painted them, and as long as they leave here sealed up and better than I found them, we're going to be happy. I've gone ahead and installed the new sockets and the backing plates in our front lights, park lights, and I went ahead and siliconed around the edges there on the back side just to keep moisture from getting in. I've ordered gaskets for everything here. I've ordered 12-volt bulb kit for the entire car, except for the headlights. I've ordered 12-volt headlights. You know, they didn't come in the kit is what I'm saying. I've ordered the springs for the headlight aiming adjustment because we just have straight wires. I'm not sure what's going on there. Yeah, then primed and painted everything. We're good to go. I've got a replacement little handy pack pigtails in the original sockets for the tail lights. That'll work. Of course, we have bulbs coming. That'll go in there. Already showed you that. I ordered a big resistor for our blower motors. I ordered a little resistor for our fuel gauge. Should be about the only one I need there. And I ordered a replacement cigarette lighter. That'll work. You know, I doubt it'll ever be used for that, but if he, you know, I have no idea. But if he wants a modern, you know, charge his phone if he's out for the day or whatever. I don't know. Whatever you want to run on there, that'll be an option, and it'll fill a hole in the dash. I've also ordered a couple more grommets for the firewall that are completely shot. Try to seal that back up, get it warm in there again. Otherwise, just need some peanuts in here, and we have a nice little peanut parfait. Man, those things were good. Is there a Dairy Queen around anymore? Sorry to disappoint you. Still just me. No, I don't know why I said that. Anyway, got my headlight and park light wires pulled through the grommet. So we'll be working on those soon. But just kind of cleaned up all the mess of wires coming off that headlight switch. Got them, kind of got my length set there. And then I trimmed the wire, the power feed wire, going to the headlight switch. So that is already available to hook to our fuse block. Right there, number 16. However, I don't have any of my soldering stuff here, so that'll have to wait till tomorrow. Done a cowboy down-home countrified cleaning and respraying. Just a touch-up job where the lights were. Just so we don't have rust, you know. And I got in my order. I must have a nut on the back already. Anyway, I've got our housing gasket back there. I've got our new lens gasket in here. And we're going to put our taillights in. Well, they've got quite a bit of patina on them, but c'est la guerre, am I right? So I'm going to start with working back here. I believe I've already stated. Now that I have my tail lights in, solder, I will probably branch off, do another line to our tag light. Whether or not that thing's even... Yeah, there's no socket in there at all. For now, we'll just leave a wire or something. And loom as we go, fuel line, sending unit wire, and just keep working our way forward. I also tested each light at a battery before I installed it and figured out which of the two wires was the dim park light wire. So I have that marked on tape on all four corners. That way I just have a clue what's going on here, and I know that my park light wire goes to the blue tape. So we'll get that soldered, and we will get this soldered. Well, guys, I really hate to have to do this to you, but unfortunately there is just too many moving pieces in this ordeal. I'm gonna have to cut you off short, and we will reconvene, get back together, and finish up this electrical system on the 48 Fleetmaster on the next video. I'm deep in the heart of restoring the gauge cluster, and I'm waiting on parts there, waiting on parts otherwise, and in fact, depending on how I edited this video, I probably have more done already than you just saw. In fact, the taillights are working, headlights are working, park lights are working, but you know, I'll bring you along, I'll catch you up, you'll see it, don't worry, but it's just too big of a job to get it all in one deal. So, I thank you so much for joining me thus far. God bless you guys. We'll see you on the next one. What can I mess up now? You got a light? Got a park light? Why don't I have a headlight? Hey, you! Oh. I don't have the gauge, or I don't have the ground connected.